So the quote goes like this. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. Genius seldom happens behind the desk. Out and about in the grind with the trade is where true inspiration lives. That is a quote from Greg Crumpton, who's the VP, one of the VPs over at Service Logic. So if you don't know Greg and follow him, check him out on LinkedIn. He's a really good guy, been around a long time, and got to meet him for the first time at the HR show. So why am I sharing that? I don't know. I thought it was kind of inspirational for me, and a lot of truth in that for me too. Like, no matter how much planning I do in my career or in life, you know, it's not really until I get out there and start doing stuff. And doing stuff means something other than me sitting on the couch thinking about doing stuff. So I wanted to share that because we are looking at starting a new podcast to serve the engineering community in the state of New York. Now, the state of New York is a little unique in that it's rather difficult to get approved to do PDH shows in New York. So we're hoping that we're not hoping, we're gonna do something there to serve that market. And I was talking to Jason Winne, who's one of the VPs over there at Klima, New York. And I was also talking with Mark Miller, who's an account executive at EBS HVAC. Both of these firms serve the state of New York as a whole. So we came up with an idea of starting a podcast there. We've already got submitted to the state a few presentations for approval, and we're going to go ahead and get those going. So we're super, super excited about that. I think we're going to call it, the name of this podcast is the Engineers HVAC podcast. So I think we're going to call it the New York Engineers HVAC podcast, which is kind of a playoff of what we do here, but I think it'll be really cool. We're super, super excited about that. So thank you, Jason and Mark, for helping to get that going. And, our whole mission here is to educate and empower the HVAC community. It's a great way for us and our family of brands, so Insight Partners, Hobbs, Klima New York, Klima New Jersey, EBS, and a whole bunch of other brands are all part of the same family of brands owned by the same company. So I'm glad to be working more with them and bringing more content online that hopefully brings value. So anyway, look for that to be coming soon, the New York Engineers HVAC podcast. I think it's going to be the name. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I haven't cleared that with a lot of people yet, but it'll be something along those lines. We're going to do live shows on LinkedIn, kind of like we do here, because we feel like that gives the most exposure and most access to the content. Okay, so by the way, if you're watching this live on LinkedIn, I'd love to know how this audio is coming through. I think it's coming through okay because I don't see any comments on there. And if you're watching this in the future on our podcast or our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We really, really do appreciate it. Okay, so A2L updates. I saw a clap there, so I think that means the audio is coming through. Okay, so A2L updates. Let's talk a little bit about the milestones of the refrigerant transition. So we are transitioning from high GWP, which is anything over 700, to low GWP refrigerants. The two viable refrigerants we're going to are R32 and R454B, which are considered A2L refrigerants. I'll talk about what that means here in a minute. I'm just going to give you the bird's eye, high-level view of this stuff for now. The milestones are 1/125. You cannot ship equipment with 410A anymore, which is considered a high GWP refrigerant. So 1/125 is a cutoff for everything except for VRF. So VRF gets another year. It's 1/126 for VRF. Heather Robinson says, sounds great. Can't wait. All right. Thank you, Heather. And thanks, Courtney Robinson, too. Heather and Courtney are they round out the marketing team with me, and without them, I can't do any of this stuff. So thank you so much for all your help. So those are the milestones for equipment shipping with R410A. Now, for equipment you've already ordered and have in the shop, in the warehouse, it's a packaged piece of equipment, you get 3 years from 1/125 to sell or install that equipment. Okay, there's a name for that remnant equipment. I can't remember. It's slipping my mind as we're doing this live show. But if you have equipment purchased as of 1/1/25, and it's packaged. You get 3 years before you have to install that. If it's a split system and you have it before 1/1/25 in the warehouse, then you can't, you get a year to install that. So you have to install that within a year if there's any interconnecting tubage. So that's the milestones. Another announcement about A2L, so there's a lot of confusion out there as to which state building codes have adopted the new A2L requirements. There's a great map finder. It's a point and click digital map. Just type in AHRI, A2L building codes, and you'll pop it up on Google. It'll pop right up. And you get to click on each individual state in the US, and it'll take you right to the codes. It'll say it's approved, it's not approved. There's also a hyperlink there to the actual building codes. So that's a huge help. Thank you, AHRI, for putting that together. Okay, training. We get asked all the time about A2L training. If you need training or curious on what kind of training you might need, please look up the ESCO Institute, Clifton with the ESCO Institute, Clifton Beck, excuse me. You can find them on LinkedIn, YouTube, they're all over the internet. He can tell you what kind of A2L training you need. He's looking at some stuff with us right now, so thank you, Clifton. The other thing, there's 2 or 3 more things I want to touch on with the A2Ls, then we'll move on to the next segment here. Transportation, there's a lot of confusion about the transportation of equipment that contains A2L refrigerant. Okay, so what I'm going to read to you involves shipping equipment from the factory that has an A2L refrigerant in it. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about, is it going to require hazmat clearance? Do you have to shut the roads down? Yada, yada, yada. What do you need to do? So this great article by Aon came out, and I'm going to read you just 2 little parts on the bottom here. So what is required when it ships depends on the size of the refrigerant charge. So for 44 pounds or less, which is approximately a 30-ton unit, it really depends on a lot of factors, but I'm just giving you a ballpark, 30 tons or less. Here's what this says is required for shipping, freight shipping, across state lines. So it is a complete exemption from hazmat regulations, which is good because hazmat is a lot of work to get that done. Placards on the truck and trailer are not required. You're not allowed to have air or water transport. Incidents of gas release must be reported to the US DOT. So those are the only requirements if it's 44 pounds or less of refrigerant. Now, if it's higher than that, this range is 44,000 to 5,000 pounds. It says this, not a complete exemption from, thank you, Heather. I'm always checking my messages and doing these live because I never know when the sound goes out on the other ends. Thank you, Heather. Not a complete exemption from the hazmat regulations. Placards on the truck trailer are not required. Labels must be on at least 2 sides of the unit. One label must be visible without unloading the unit. That's important. Must be transported on an open flatbed trailer, an open flatbed rail car or well-ventilated closed transport vehicle, no air or water transport. That's for anything over 44 pounds. So again, I'm reading this. You could probably Google Aon A2L shipping requirements. If you can't find it and need more information, please reach out to us and we'll get that to you. So that has to do with shipping equipment that has A2L refrigerants in them from the factory. Now, in terms of transportation, if you're a service tech, I understand it's business as usual. Just take the same safety precautions you would take with regular refrigerant tanks and you should be okay there. Okay, so we talked about transportation. What about tank storage in warehouses? We've gotten that question a few times. I'm going to direct you to another resource. This resource was pointed out to us by Don Gillis with Chemours. So Don is a very valuable resource for us. Shout out to Don. Thank you for your help. So if you just type in this is another AHRI document, AHRI refrigerant cylinder storage or refrigerant tank storage, this PDF will pop right up. And it talks about different, self-storage, rack storage, solid pile. which I'm not sure what that is. I should probably know that and look that up. It looks like a solid pile is, is shown right here. Ooh, hit my microphone. It's shown right here. So it looks like a stack of boxes. So probably should know that after being in the industry a while. But anyway, AHRI, refrigerant cylinder storage.